saw this quote today by Vladimir Nabokov, is how I believe you say his name. It went something like, your worst sin is that you have destroyed and betrayed yourself for nothing. And it did for me what a lot of great writers can do, and it put something I'd been feeling for a long time into words, very aptly, eloquently, whatever you want to call it. And it really hit me hard because it's something that I'd been feeling not about myself, but about a lot of the people around me for a long time. And that was that I feel as though, as I've watched so many people grow up, whether it be from, 30 to 60, or I haven't seen them go from 30 to 60, but 30 to 40 to 50, or from as a kid with me until the age I am now, when they're in their 20s and things like that. I feel like I've seen so many people maybe not destroy themselves quite as much, luckily, but I've definitely seen a huge number of people betray themselves or change over the years in ways that is genuinely disheartening. And, it's something that, when you talk about pet peeves, when I find myself, bitching in casual conversation, I think the thing I find myself complaining about the most is when this happens, when people betray themselves, when people do something that I know isn't them because they've told me it's not them, but they do it anyways. And when you can look in someone's eyes from across a room when they're not being themselves and see them catch eye contact with you for a second and give you that look of what? Even though they know what? They know they're not being themselves. They know that there's something a little bit strange in how they're acting, that they've betrayed one thing or another. I remember, I've never drank, I'm sober. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that hammered home now if you've watched a lot of these. But growing up, of course I tell people I don't want to drink when I'm older. And I think somewhat naturally, they would just agree with me, because I think a lot of people, when they're like 10 to 15, are like, no, I don't really care about the drinking so much. And then you get to later high school and that definitely changes for a lot of people. I think that's a very natural thing, but I think at 14 was the first time I looked at somebody, I was like, you just told me since we were kids that you would never drink, that you thought that was dumb, that you don't know why anyone would do it. And now I'm looking over at you doing it. And it's like, of course that was such a natural thing, but it was like, wow, people change in ways that, they don't want to. And I don't know if that person wanted to drink or not to this day. I'm not in their head, I have no idea. But it still said something to me of everyone at one point or another is going to be decayed by the world around them, peer pressured, but not by the people around them, by the world, if that makes sense. When we're taught peer pressure in school, we're taught that like someday someone's gonna come up to us and be like, you're a fucking loser if you don't take this shot, like something like that. And the reality is that's not really how peer pressure happens. That's not really how we change. And what really happens, from what I've seen and experienced, is you slowly see something happening around you until it feels so normal that your own conscience has accepted it before you even did it, And my biggest fear is that happening to me. My biggest fear is that I look down at myself one day and I've become something that I never wanted to become and I didn't even realize it happened. You know what I mean? I remember maybe a year ago, I was looking in the mirror at an outfit I just threw on, and I was like, this isn't me. I'm not wearing my own clothes right now. And it was an outfit I'd worn so many times before that, but just something about the clothes just bothered me, And I went about my day, and eventually I ended up driving all the way back home and changing because I realized it wasn't the clothes. It was what those clothes represented, why I was wearing them, how I was acting. I realized it wasn't me, it wasn't natural, And I was betraying my own my own wants, my own desires, my own like sense of self, because I wanted to fit in, or I wanted to be liked, or I wanted to be quote unquote normal, which is, I think, where a lot of this desire comes from. You know what I mean? It's like you go to the club with your friends so many times, and eventually you just feel like a loser if you're standing there sober. You feel it's so normal to just grab a drink that you do it. You know what I mean? And maybe you didn't want to, maybe you did, but the point is it happened not because of you, but because of everyone else. And it's sad. I think over the years I've become okay at realizing when I'm doing this, but it's so sad seeing it happen to everyone around me, as they, like, when you're a kid, I feel like everyone's telling each other their dreams a lot, or at least I know I was, and hearing them a lot. And it's crazy that, like, and maybe I'm weird because I feel like no one remembers those conversations, but I do. And I'm looking around at all the people around me, and I'm like, where did that go? Why aren't you trying that anymore? Like, why'd you compromise when you didn't have to? Especially my age. I mean, everyone's so young. You know what I mean? And it's like, you don't have bills to pay, you don't have anything to do. People will compromise at 22 years old, or, their early 20s, because it's easier to say, oh, I'm, going to be an accountant, than it is to say, I am following my dream, I'm following my passion, I'm trying to start up a thing, I'm trying to be this guy, you know what I mean? I'm trying to act, I'm trying to sing, anything, just anything. I feel like there's so much social pressure to, in those small lines of dialogue, have an answer that's socially acceptable, that I think people compromise just for that reason, because you say something once, you go to a family gathering and your aunt asks you like, oh, so what have you been up to? What's new? And when you have to go nothing, or when you have to say like, I haven't made any progress in this thing, not because I'm not trying, but because it's not working. When you have to give these responses, I think a lot of the times it messes with people, because those moments reflect such big moments in our own ego. You know what I mean? They affect, they're not just asking what you've been up to, they're asking what does you look like right now? And sometimes the answer is like, well, what me looks like is not what I really want it to look like. And I think that's really tough for a lot of people. Because it's easy to fit in. I mean, it really is. 100% it's easy to fit in. And everyone wants to fit in. Whether you say you want to fit in or not, everyone wants to fit in. 100%. I totally believe that. You want people to like you, And there's, recently I heard this other quote, or maybe I saw it somewhere. It was like, why would you ever care if people like you? Most people don't even like themselves. And it's so true. It's like they've all compromised who they are, and they just want to see that you're doing it too, to fit in with them, who also compromised, who also isn't happy with where they are. What's that line on that one Adele song? Great line about that. Best line ever. She's like, sometimes I feel like I'm the only person who became who they thought they'd be. Is that it? And listen, I'm not, this doesn't say that I'm the most successful, awesome person on earth. I don't mean that by any means, but I can say for a fact that I'm one of the few people I know who gets to like look at myself and go, I never betrayed myself, I'm still standing here exactly who I want to be, even if other people don't love what that is, or even if other people see it as bizarre or not how it should be right now, 100%. And I'm like so proud of that fact, It's a tough balance to strike. I completely understand it. I really can't blame people when they just, give up on the game of trying to strike that balance, because it's not easy. You got to protect it. You got to know when to show it. Most people don't have the confidence, I know I don't, to go around and be like, this is who I am unabashedly all the time. That's not a thing. No one's really doing that. That's a really hard thing to do. That's an impossible thing to do, I think. And there's this Bob Dylan clip where he's talking about like, destiny. And he's like, everyone in their mind, in the back of their mind, has this person who they know that they can be, you know? And he goes like, the tough part about life is protecting that person you see in your head, because it's such a fragile thing. People can so easily shatter it. You know, having those moments of that person's smarter than me, that person's better than me, that person's funnier than me, those are tough moments when you're trying to be something bigger than yourself, because you have to look at something bigger than yourself, you know? And that's why I think all these forces make it so much easier to give up on who we want to be than they do to remain 100% true to ourselves. And then, you know, the question I constantly find myself asking ever since I've really come to this realization, it's a paralyzing realization sometimes, I think, because you gotta ask, like, is this me right now? In every single thing you do, you gotta ask the question, like, is this 100% me? And a lot of the times, the answer is no, even if you really want it to be yes. You know, going back to the analogy of clothing, I think clothing is a great example for this stuff because it's very direct self-expression in a way that a lot of things aren't. So I think it's a really great example for this stuff. You know, you see a piece of clothing that's trending, or maybe someone's wearing it in a movie and you're like, that's really cool. Like, I should try it. And you go, you try it on, maybe you buy it, you know, whatever it may be. And it's like, this isn't me, but like, it's really cool. I really want it to be. And you got to sit down and accept, like, man, it's just not me. You know, this cool jacket is not me. Of course, the jacket's more of like a metaphor for, you know, maybe you want to wake up at 6 a.m. every day and work harder than everyone else. But then you got to come to the conclusion of like, that's just not the type of person I am. I'm going to be, my path is to wake up at, you know, 9 and go to bed at 3. You know, small details like this of how do you stay true to yourself, even when it doesn't seem fun or when it's not fun. These are hard questions to answer. And again, just why I think so many people give up on it. Something that I think like I've been trying to do a lot is like to really be in tune with like who I was as a kid. Like thinking of my dumb ideas as a kid that I would love and I would tell my friends and they'd make fun of, all those ideas that like I don't like thinking about because they were dumb little ideas I had as a kid. I want to like think about those again and be like, man, who was I with nobody watching? Who was I when I wasn't socially aware enough to tell myself how to act? Because maybe that's more me than I'd like to admit, you know? And that's why, you know, that's why when I say like, what does you look like? Maybe it is, I don't have the answer to that, obviously. I'm not you. Sometimes I'm barely even me. But like, you got to ask that question of like, maybe it's the inner child. Maybe it's who you were as a kid. You know, what does you look like? What's the most honest version of you? What jokes would you make with your friends when you were 5 and your parents weren't looking? You know, what did you naturally incline to? I have these younger kids in my family that I see every now and again, and like, it really unironically renewed my faith in humanity, just because of like seeing a young kid who has not a worry in the world, and they're making just like the dumbest fart jokes with their friends, and like everyone in the room is laughing at them, and they're like, oh, they're dumb kids, and it's like, but they're so much happier than all of us. They're so much more honest. They have the attitude that maybe we all should have, of like, they look at something and they're like, I'm gonna do that thing, you know? And people don't have that anymore. Everyone, like, I feel like the way the world works, all it does is, like, it's all so useless, you know what I mean? All it does to people is give them a sense of nihilism they don't need about everything, all the time. My natural, or a lot of my friends, not mine so much, but sometimes this is me actually too, like the natural state of getting an idea is to think of 100 reasons why it won't work. And it's like, why? Why is that? What happened to when we were all younger and a little dumber and would go, okay, why not? Like, let's just try that. Because some of those ideas will work. Obviously, you know, there's an element to this where everyone just gets smarter as they get older. Some of those ideas really won't work. But, you know, some of them will. And like, do them. You're being held back by what? Your fear of failure, your fear of looking stupid. And it's like, this is once again the forces of the world holding you back, that if you didn't think about so much, I think we'd all be a lot further. I love watching interviews with Kanye West because he seems like he seems kind of insane in all of them, no matter the time period. Like, he seems a little crazy, and it's like, but he also, excluding a certain period of interviews, which we all actually think of, he also just has such a perspective of like, I'm a kid, like, I'm just gonna do that thing, you know what I mean? Like of course I can do that, I'm Kanye, you know? And it's like, why don't we all have this attitude about everything? Why do we hear things and go, no? It's like, all you got to do to be a doctor is take the exam. Why don't you just start studying? You can do it on your own. You know what I mean? Obviously, that's such an unrealistic idea. But maybe if we all thought like that, we'd be a lot better off. I don't know really why it annoys me so much seeing everyone betray themselves. Maybe it's because like I've put so much work into not doing that thing, but I guess in that sense, it's fairly narcissistic for me to be like, no, everyone should hold true to their ideas that they had when they were a kid, like I should. You know what I mean? Maybe some people shouldn't, just don't want to, and that's fine too. But I can't help but think that a lot of the ideas people get implanted in their head come from society and the world around them, and it's a very arbitrary world that we just did not, you know, why would you let the system that we live in, the world that we live in, has changed for meaningless reasons in meaningless ways a million times over. It's like, why would you let all these things push you in every which direction to become something you never wanted to become, because these people you didn't know set up this thing you don't understand. You know, I don't understand the world out there, and it's pushing me around every day. Why would I let the thing that I don't understand pushing me around shape the piece of clay that I become? You know? And that's why I think it's so important for everyone to like understand just how meaningless it is if you let it be, if you make it that way, you know? Anyway, the painting's done. This is a little bit of a more ugly one, but like I wanted that, so I can't complain. Like this is what I was aiming for, but I don't know why I don't like it now that like I'm looking at it. Like I achieved my goal. It's just very ugly. It's a very ugly painting. So what I wanted to do was I want to try and play to my strengths with this painting. So I wanted to, you know, I'm pretty okay at laying the groundworks with a washed out paint at this point of like what a face would look like. I'm not good at actually filling in those details, so I figured why not do a painting where I'm leaving it deconstructed, showing how the forces around him and with these lines are like pulling him apart. And it's deconstructing him to be a version of himself. You know, this is still very much a person, this is still very much a human, but he's been deconstructed to be a version of his own face that still has all the elements there, but it's just not right. It's not how he wants to look, because the yellow is representing the light, and the red is representing more aggressive forces around him, and this is what I wanted to do. I also thought it was cool to leave, and this is also me playing to my own strength of not being able to fill color 100%, but or playing to my own weakness, I guess, more so, not being able to fill color 100%. I wanted to do black streaks to represent like darkness, and then I want to have just a little bit of white peeking through to represent like the moments of light, because I feel like a lot of the time, you know, when you are getting pulled in a certain direction, whether it's the good or the bad, you do get a glimpse of like the pureness in that. You know what I mean? You have, even if it's when you're looking across the room at your friend and going like, what? Or maybe it's when you see your friend acting different and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing that too. We all have those moments of purity where it's like, we recognize that thing and we're like, I don't want that to be me, or I do want that to be me. And I think that moment of purity is the white here. So yeah, this is the painting. I'm gonna end the painting talk here because I'm gonna experiment with making these different lengths. You know, I've noticed in some painted talks that I make them really long because I want to fill that 30 minutes of time. And then in some painted talks, I make them really short because I don't have the time to record, I don't have that much to say. And then a lot of the times, things will happen where I finish the painting, I finish the discussion, but I keep going. And I think, something I say often is that I think good art is honest art, and I should stick to my own words here and make these as honest as possible. So when the painting's done, when the discussion's done, I'm gonna start editing the episode for a little bit, see how I like it. I'll probably put up a poll on the channel about this too, maybe even before this even goes out, just because I want to see what people think about it. Because on the one hand, I really do like the idea of like everyone has the 30 minutes a day of like, oh, on my drive, I'll listen to this. But on the other hand, it's like sometimes you don't need 30 minutes, So I don't know, I'm gonna play around with it. Obviously, we're only at Paint and Talk 38 out of 365, so the style is gonna be found a lot here. We're gonna move things around and experiment a little bit to begin with. So this is just one of those times. We're gonna see how this goes for a little bit and play around with that whole ordeal, whatever you want to call it. But okay, I'm going on too long here. This is, of course, finished painting. You guys know the drill. Go check it out over on the Instagram to see the painting from different angles if you want to with this one. It's not the easiest on the eyes. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, this has been Paint and Talk number 38. I'm here every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, painting and talking with you.